Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, the PGA Tour is back in the swing of things, the fall swing of things, and we're here today to break down the Procore Championship, formerly known as the Fortnite Championship, formerly known as the Safeway Open, formerly known as the Fries.com Open. Holy crap, this event has had a lot of names. It's the fall event being played in Napa Valley, California, and we're going to break it down here for you in this episode, tell you everything you need to know about this golf tournament. And the unique thing we do here for our golf episodes is we break down everything you need to know, talking about the course, the stats, the golfers, the strategy, everything in 30 minutes or less. That is kind of our thing. There's a lot of information, a lot of golf content out there. Not a lot of people are doing it as efficiently and quickly as we are in 30 minutes or less. We're going to tell you everything you need to know for DFS betting and one and done purposes. Now, if you are watching this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. That we can be with us for the rest of the PGA Tour season. We generally have golf episodes every single week during the fall swing. I'm not going to promise every single week because right now our primary focus is in college football. So if you're subscribed, you'll know when those episodes drop as well. And I highly encourage you to check out some of the college football content because college football, DFS, and betting, there's certainly a big edge to be had. And if you do your research, which I generally do, then you can end up getting ahead in some of those games. All right. So without further ado, we got a lot to break down. So let's go and start talking about the golf course, the Silverado. All right. So in terms of the fall swing golf courses, Silverado Resort's pretty good. The fall swing is not my favorite series of events. It's not like the most notorious set of events because let's be honest, every Sunday they're going up against football. Every Saturday they're going up against football. So the PGA Tour doesn't exactly break out the big guns for these events here in the fall, but I think Silverado is a pretty nice golf course. Now, if you're not familiar with how the fall swing works in general, so basically the way the PGA Tour schedule works now, the PGA Tour revolves around getting into the signature events, which I hate, but that's a story for another time. So basically the signature events are 70 player fields usually, and the top 50 from last year's FedEx Cup standings are automatically in those events. So if you qualified for the BMW Championship, you're automatically in all the signature events next year. It's hugely important. What the fall swing does is it allows those not in the top 50 to have a chance to maintain their tour cards as well as qualify for the signature event because the top 10 from the fall swing automatically get into the first two signature events, which is kind of how you get into the next few signature events. So it's highly important for those guys who maybe qualified for the FedEx St. Jude but didn't get in the top 50 or didn't qualify for the FedEx Cup playoffs to get into that top 10, and also for everybody else jockeying for position to stay in the top 100 so that way they maintain their PGA Tour cards. So generally speaking, the top players in the world don't normally show up to these fall swing events because they already are in the top 50 and it's time for their off season, right? But this event is a lot different because the Ryder Cup is coming up in 2 weeks. Quick side note, what is the PGA Tour doing with this scheduling? Like we had a 2-week break. Now we have this event and then a full 1-week break and then the Ryder Cup. I don't know what this scheduling is. I just don't. I don't know why we're playing the Ryder Cup when we do. I don't know why we're playing this event when we do. I don't feel like they consulted people on this. Anyway, basically, the reason why this field is going to be very good this week is because the Ryder Cup is coming up in 2 weeks, and Keegan Bradley strongly encouraged most of the members of the U.S. Ryder Cup team to be here. So the top of the field is all guys that are going to be in the Ryder Cup. Everybody who's not in the Ryder Cup that's in this field is either guys who play in California and like to play in California events near the top of the board, or guys who are looking to fight for or maintain tour status. So what you end up with is you end up with a very top-heavy field this week where the Ryder Cuppers are certainly kind of in their own can win it. And when you look at the eclectic group of winners, it kind of stands out. You got Brendan Steele with the Cameron Champ. You've got Max Homa with the Sahith Theegala. You've got Patton Kizzire on the list as well. But the bottom line is this is a golf course that is one of the shortest par 72s on the PGA Tour, second only to Pebble Beach in that regard. And it also has the narrowest fairways on the PGA Tour. But that's not that big of a deal. Overall, the lack of length of this course and the lack of a penalty for missing the fairway make this one of the easiest golf courses on the PGA Tour. It also makes it one of the golf courses that downplays driving more than any other course on the PGA Tour. Think about this for a second. When you think about courses that emphasize driving distance, they're long golf courses where you are afforded an advantage by having a 9-iron in your hand as opposed to a 5-iron in your hand, right? Or another type of course where distance is advantage. Think Winged Foot when Bryson won there, where the fairways were so narrow that no one was hitting them. And it was a big example to have a pitching wedge from the rough as opposed to a 7-iron from the rough, right? That's when driving distance is an advantage, when being short and inaccurate kills you. Driving accuracy is an advantage when the fairways are wide enough to hit, so that way accurate players have a little more margin for error, and there's an actual penalty for missing the fairway. This course, with very little water hazards, not super dense tree lines, like the driving corridors are fairly wide, and not thick rough, it doesn't make for a course where distance or accuracy off the tee really gives you a whole lot of advantage, especially considering the overall lack of length. Because what's the difference between having a pitching wedge in your hand and having a gap wedge in your hand? It's not a whole lot. So this is a type of course where you're just going to see guys just generally just pop it out there off the tee. Driver usage is about on average. Driving accuracy is very low here because the fairways are quite narrow, but there's no penalty for missing them. So like you can just swing away. It's a very weird dynamic off the tee. It makes it that way off the tee play is really devalued here. And what it turns into is a wedge and putting contest. It's how close can you put your wedges on these greens, of which there's a high green regulation percentage, and then how many putts can you make on the greens. The agronomy of the greens is a little bit weird. It's classified as a bent grass POA mix. I'm no agronomy expert, but I do know that's the same classification at Detroit Golf Club and TPC River Highlands. So if you want to look at comp courses for putting, I think you can look at those. Hamilton Golf Club in Canada is another one. What I did this week when I did putting is I just clicked all bent, all POA, and then all bent POA. So I'm just not looking at Bermuda or Paspalum or native grasses, just looking at all bent and POA because I think that'll kind of give you a pretty good read as to who's good on them. But yeah, that's what we got this week, guys. This is a fairly easy, fairly straightforward golf course where it turns into a wedge and putting contest. And if you are on fire with your wedges or if you are on fire with your putter, then you can end up coming through and winning this golf tournament because it's not going to place a big emphasis on around the tee or on off the tee game. It's not going to place a huge emphasis on around the green play. It generally is a difficult course around the green, but the problem is that like you're not going to be missing a whole lot of greens here. If you're missing greens here, you're playing from behind, right? So for our key stats this week, it's going to line up with pretty much what we talked about. Strokes gained approach, strokes gained putting, green and regulation percentage, birdie or better. That's the priorities this week. And so when you look at the comp courses, it's a whole lot of other comp courses that we talked about where neither distance nor accuracy off the tee gives you a huge advantage, but courses where you're going to have short approach shots in, and you're going to have to dial it in close and make birdies in order to win. I'm talking Detroit Golf Club, Sedgefield, Pebble Beach, PGA West, home of the American Express, TPC Summerlin, and TPC River Highlands. I think those are your best comp courses this week. And I think that those are going to be what we want to look at in terms of kind of handicapping the field. Another note is that because this is the first week in the fall swing, we're looking at a situation here where a lot of these guys all these guys haven't played in 3 weeks. Most of these guys haven't played in a month and a half to 2 months. And so I'm not really looking at any recent form stats. I'm looking at a whole lot of like cumulative 2025 stats. And then I'm looking at kind of like just big samples in terms of overall course fit. And because also like you never know what a guy does in the 3, 4, 5 weeks leading up to this event. And, it's not like I have like I'm not following all of them on Instagram and seeing what they're up to. I don't know all their personal schedule. I don't know how much golf they're all playing, right? So I'm looking at general overall profile and archetype this week more so than anything when it comes to like recent form and statistics. So let's go ahead now and dive down the rabbit hole. All right, if you have not been with us before, you should know that when I say dive down the rabbit hole, I'm not referring to a literal rabbit hole. I'm talking about the rabbit hole, which is a tool from BetSperts Golf that allows you to use all different kinds of filters and conditions in order to make a custom model for any specific golf tournament. And it really lets you isolate any micro skill that you want. And it really has helped me find some guys this year that I might not have found otherwise. So here's what we got this week in the rabbit hole stats in the custom model. So I first just wanted to get a general baseline, strokes gained total, calendar year 2025, who have been the best players in the field. I want to give a boost to those guys. Like I said, I'm looking at general profile this week as opposed to recent form. Best guys in the field this year, Scotty Scheffler, shocker, Russell Henley, Ben Griffin, Justin Thomas, and J.J. Spawn. Then I wanted to look at strokes gained off the tee on courses with narrow fairways. Now, granted, this one doesn't have a big missed fairway penalty, but just any course with narrow fairways. We've got Scotty Scheffler, Rico Hoey, Keith Mitchell, Michael Thorbjornsen, and Thomas Rosenmuller. Then I wanted to look at general strokes gained approach for the calendar year 2025. Number 1 is Scotty Scheffler, shocker. Number 2 is Colin Morikawa, followed by Henrik Norlander, J.J. Spawn, and Patrick Cantlay. And then the key proximity bucket this week is going to be 100 to 150 yards. So the best guys in the field in that regard are Colin Morikawa, Scott Piercy, Troy Merritt, Grayson Sigg, and Matt Kuchar. Then I wanted to look at strokes gained on approach on short golf courses because this generally gives you an idea of how guys are with wedges and short irons in their hand. And then the best in the field in that regard are Scheffler, Thomas, Hoagie, Hoey, and David Lipsky. And then last approach stat I want to look at, which, like I said, approach heavy this week. I want to look at strokes gained approach on courses with easy to hit greens. Basically, when everybody's hitting the green, are you separating yourself from everybody else who's hitting the green? Best in the field: Scheffler, Doug Gim, JJ Spawn, Tom Hoagie, Ben Coles, and Colin Morikawa tying for 5th there. Then general around the green play for 2025. Like I said, this is a pretty tough around the green course, so I would prefer a guy to be, kind of having that skill set in their bag. Best in the field: Andrew Putnam, Bo Hostler, Patton Kazire, Russell Henley, and Peter Malnati. Then I want to look at strokes gained putting. I kind of described it earlier. I want everything but Bermuda greens, pretty much. I got Taylor Montgomery, Sam Burns, Harris English, Max Grazerman, and Bo Hostler. And then for the strokes gained total stats, I went with 3 of them here this week. The first one is going to be all short courses over the last 3 years. We got Scheffler, Thomas, Henley, Cantlay, and Eric Cole. And then I want to look at strokes gained total in the fall swing. So basically in these fall events, who plays the best? We got Justin Thomas, Mackenzie Hughes, Maverick McNeely, Eric Cole, and Sam Burns. I'm truly a believer in biomechanics and biorhythms. And so I really do think that there's value in looking at other guys who have played well in the fall, because it's also a measure of, hey, the last year and years before, you had a few weeks off. How did you play after having those few weeks off, right? Like, it just allows you to kind of know who's good in this same type of situation. And then I also want to look at my comp courses, which we talked about earlier. Best in the field at the comp courses: Cantlay, Henley, Scheffler, Tom Kim, Davis, Thompson. All right, now you throw all that into a custom model. And is there any surprise here? Do I need to make any kind of introduction? Number one, Scotty Scheffler. Like, he's the best golfer on the planet. He is tracking to be one of the 5 best golfers of all time. And he's just buying away the best golfer in the field. And I'm not surprised coming in number 1 in my model, because he's good in all facets, right? Like, I don't think this is the best Scotty course, because I do think that Scotty is such a good, complete player that Scotty can separate with any aspect of his game, and this course really does make it hard for him to separate with his driver. So he's going to be dependent on his approach play and his putting, but it's not like he's bad at either of those things. He's actually improved to be an above-average putter, which is something I thought would have never happened 2 years ago. And so Scotty's just incredible. We're going to talk about what it means for DFS a little bit later, but I will say, when it comes to Scotty, I'm not betting anyone this week in terms of an outright winner if I don't have a without Scotty market, or if I'm not doing an each way bet. I'm terrified Scotty's going to win this event, because Scotty's won 5 of his last 10 events. He won the Open Championship by 5 strokes. He's just insane. He's just insane. Like, he won the BMW Championship where he was basically starting off 6 strokes back of Robert McIntyre, had 3 rounds to make it up, and won. Like, he's so good at golf, and he's the number 1 golfer in the field. Number 2 is Justin Thomas. Y'all, I really like me some Justin Thomas this week. The last time I got on here and Justin Thomas was like near the very top in my model was Harbortown. You guys remember what happened at Harbortown? He won. And the reason why I like Justin Thomas here is because it downplays his weakness, which is off the tee play. He is not good with his driver. He's generally been a really good approach player this year, although he's been a little bit hit or miss lately. He is generally not the best putter in the world, but he's been a good putter lately. So I really think that this is a good spot for Justin Thomas. He tends to always play this event well also. So I'm just kind of all in on Justin Thomas this week. I think if I'm playing anybody not named Scotty Scheffler, he's the guy that I'm going to go with. In his last 3 appearances here, he's finished top 8 all 3 times. So Justin Thomas, really, really good spot, in my opinion. Sorry about that, y'all. Number 3 in my model is going to be Russell Henley. What's interesting is Russell Henley doesn't have a great course history here, but you think about the archetype, right? This is a guy who plays well in easy scoring conditions. This guy who plays well at courses where we value accuracy over distance, which this one isn't necessarily, but it's not one. He also is really good iron player. He's also just generally playing really good golf right now. T2 at the Tour Championship last time we saw him. So I think this is a really good spot for Russell Henley, even though his history here is not the best. He last played here in 2018 and he missed the cut. But that was also 2018. Russell Henley is an entirely different golfer now than he was in 2018. He's a Ryder Cupper now. JJ Spawn is number 4. I'm not as enthused about him. I really do like Patrick Cantlay. He's number 5 in my model. Cantlay this year has actually been really good as a ball striker. He just hasn't been able to cash in and have a really good week where he put it together with his ball striking and his short game. Well, guess what? 2 out of the last 3 tournaments, he massively gained ball striking and he gained with the putter. He was T9 at the FedEx St. Jude. He was T2 at the Tour Championship. Cantlay also loves playing in California, and this course is in California. It's in the Napa Valley. So I really think this is a good spot for Patrick Cantlay. He is also one of my favorites this week. Colin Morikawa is number 6. And I don't know, man. Like, I understand why he's high in the model because he's a really good iron player, but he's totally lost with the putter. He's not a great driver of the golf ball, but that's not mitigated here. Like, it's not a detriment. And then he's not a good around the green player. I don't think this is the best spot for Colin Morikawa, so probably a pass this week. Ben Griffin's number 7, and Ben Griffin, like, first off, he leveled up this year, right? But second off, like, when you think of Ben Griffin, he's kind of in the Justin Thomas camp where the driver is his weakness and everything else is his strength, especially his putter, especially his approach play. And what is emphasized this week? Ding, 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 approach play and putting. So I think this is actually a really good Ben Griffin spot, and I think that not a lot of people are going to be on him, and so I will gladly be on Ben Griffin in this situation. Number 8 is the first really kind of value play in my model, Andrew Putnam. Not shocking. Andrew Putnam might be a core DFS play for me this week. He is a really good approach player. He is a really good around the green player. Recent form leaves a little bit to be desired, but this is a guy who can spike with his irons, who can spike with his putter, and even if he misses greens, he has the ability to scramble and not lose strokes to the field. So I really do like Andrew Putnam this week. Matt Kuchar ends up 9. Akshay Bhatia ends up 10. So that is my custom model as it stands right now. But I'm going to tinker with this thing all week long. And so if you want to know who makes the final top 10 of my model, head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/MikesMoneyPicks. Every Wednesday, I have an article where I post my core plays for DraftKings and FanDuel, as well as the top 10 for my model, and a full write-up why they are my core plays and why they are where they are in the model. And then also, if you want more information from me, follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks, and also join the Fantasy Corner Discord. Not just golf discussion in there, but every single sport. If you are looking for people to talk DFS with, then the Fantasy Corner Discord is absolutely the place for you. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick breather, and then let's take a look at the board, talk about some strategy, and then we'll close it out. So taking a look at the board as a whole, props to you, DraftKings, for finally pricing Scotty Scheffler where he deserves to be priced, and finally making there actually be a decision on whether or not you have to click Scotty Scheffler in your lineups. Because if I'm being totally honest, I built out a few sample builds today, and Scotty is priced up so far, with everybody else priced up so down, that I'm going to be honest, I kind of like my lineups better when I don't have Scotty. Like, if you play Scotty this week in DraftKings, you're pretty much resigning yourself to, I'm going to have at least 4 golfers under 7,500. Like, there's no way around that, right? Like, you can only get up to maybe 1 guy above 7,500. And you're probably going to have to play some guys in the 6K range, which is quite bad this week. So I really think that this is a week where they're actually making you make a decision on Scotty. I will not full fade Scotty Scheffler because I just don't believe in doing that. Like, I will probably, if his ownership projection comes in at about 25%, which I think is a reasonable adjustment, I'll probably be at about that 25% this week because there's a chance that Scotty boat races everybody. But when you look at like the most likely outcome this week, to me, the most likely outcome is you get 2 or 3 of the guys that are in the Ryder Cup in the top 10. And if you happen to pick the right few of those guys, you can end up landing yourself on the optimal, as opposed to a Scotty lineup where you're just hunting for value guys that might not even get there. So my thought process this week is I'm just going to play a little Scotty. It's not going to be like previous weeks where I just jam him in and make it work because he just wasn't priced up high enough. This week, there's an actual decision to be made, and I'm probably going to make it at about 25% of my lineups this week. Now, in terms of the rest of the builds, right? I really think it's easy to go up and get two of your favorite guys that are not named Scotty Scheffler this week. Now, the problem is that I actually think while this week, I think the bottom of the field is so bad, I think it's really easy to pick out a player pool for the bottom of the field. I think it's really hard to fade guys near the top of the field. Like, I haven't even mentioned Sam Burns yet. He's one of the best putters on the PGA Tour. He was 4th or 7th here last time he played this event. He's a good wedge player. Like, he's in good form. Like, I just think this is a really good spot for Sam Burns, too. And he didn't even show up in the top 10 of my model. So if I'm looking for guys to fade this week near the top of the board, I'm probably fading Cameron Young. I think it's a terrible golf course for him. JJ Spawn, who last 2 times we've seen him has not been that great. Colin Morikawa, the last 2 times we've seen him, has not been that great. And I'm thinking of fading Maverick McNeely and Harris English as well, just kind of fading that whole little range, just because it's just, I don't know. I just don't have great vibes about him. Now, the one thing I will say about McNeely is that McNeely is one of the best California golfers in the field. He's one of the best comp course golfers in the field. And he can certainly get hot with the approach and the putter. So maybe I am talking myself into McNeely. Maybe I'll play McNeely but fade the other guys. I think that's probably the move I'm going to end up making. Now, I do think when it comes to this field, we talked about how there's Ryder Cuppers, right? And then there's a few guys that were kind of at one point like on the cusp of being on the team, like your Mav McNeely, your Davis Thompson, your Akshay Bhatia, your Max Homa. I think those guys are like a tier above pretty much everyone else in the field, if I'm being honest. Like, I think there's a pretty significant drop-off after you go down below Max Grazerman at 8,300. I think that's where the drop-off is, right? So I really do like it, Thompson and Akshay this week. I think they're 2 guys that are just generally good iron players that just generally play well at this type of event. They're slightly longer than average, slightly more accurate than average off the tee. I think they're both in really good spots. Bhatia played here 2 years ago. Why do I feel like Bhatia had a really good finish here? In 2020, he was T9 here. I feel like he had a better run than that. Maybe, I don't know. I'm thinking of somebody else possibly. But yeah, I'm thinking Thompson and Bhatia are both going to be pretty solid parts of my DraftKings player pool this week. I'm also going to be early on Jackson Coyban. So I mentioned at the top how I just want to bet on long-term profile and long-term stats, right? Well, long-term, Jackson Coyban is going to be one of the best players in this field. He is already qualified to play on the PGA Tour, but he actually went back for his senior season at Auburn. So he's legit, and he's played in 3 PGA Tour events over the summer, finished top 11 at all of them. It's pretty darn impressive, y'all. And it's been 3 different types of golf courses. So I think this guy's game travels. I think he is an ascending talent. I don't necessarily think he has the upside to win the tournament, but I think he's going to be around. So Jackson Coyban 8,500, definitely getting to him this week. And I already mentioned Max Grazerman. Like, when you look at the comp courses, who's a guy that's played well at all those comp courses? It's Max Grazerman. Now, the last time we saw him at the FedEx St. Jude wasn't great, but you talk about a guy who can randomly spike on approach. You talk about a guy who can randomly spike with the putter. Hello, that's Max Grazerman. So I do think this is a really good spot for Max Grazerman as well. Now, as I said, I think that it's hard to kind of pick out a player pool from the top, but I think it's easy to pick out a player pool from the bottom. Starting in the 7K range, I like me some Mark Hubbard this week. I like me some Patrick Fishburne this week, but the problem is, like, I just worry about the upside. Like, Fishburne was 3rd here last year. Hubbard was 3rd at the Wyndham a few weeks ago. But, like, I just don't know if these guys are good enough in this field against these Ryder Cuppers to finish in the top 10 and to really play all that well. The upside might be like a T15, which Hubbard seems to do here almost every time he plays here, which Fishburne's done 3 times this summer. Like, not a bad spot for either of them. Now, a guy that I don't think anybody's talking about, but I really do like this week is Beau Hossler. So, you know, the whole concept is we just want guys who can randomly spike on approach and on the putter, right? Well, Beau Hossler's a guy that can do that. Look what he did at the Wyndham. And if you're worried about the driver with Beau, which I think is natural, he played pretty well with it over the summer. And also, this is a course where if you're a little wild with the driver, no one's going to notice, right? There's not a lot of hazards. There's not a lot of trouble to get caught in. So I think that this is a really good spot for Beau Hossler at 7,700. Now, I'd also love me some Victor Perez at 7,500. I pretty much always play Victor Perez. Why? I don't know. I just do. I just think he has a generally good profile that shows up and plays well at PGA Tour events. So I'm going to be on him. And then I like Luke Clinton at 7,400. I don't know what the kind of switch has been that last year it really seemed like Clinton was pacing toward Burnson, and now it seems like the other way around. Clinton just kind of forgot how to putt this summer, and if he would have been a better on the greens, I think he would have had a lot better results. So I don't think he's a bad shout at 7,400 here in this field either. Now, I will mention a few guys in the low 7K range because, y'all, the low 7K range on DraftKings has a lot of my guys this week that I just generally play a lot every time they tee it up. You got Mackenzie Hughes, who's short game wizard, one of the best fall players on the PGA Tour. Nico Echeverria, wedge king, short course king, just won an event in the fall last year. In on him. Doug Gim, the captain of Team No Putt now. I mentioned this on the show multiple times, but played at Texas with Scotty Scheffler and was actually considered the more talented one when they were at Texas. Great approach player, one of the best irons and short iron players in the field. William Mao, winner at the ISCO over the summer. That's another short course, and he's a guy who can spike on approach and with the putter. And then Tom Kim and Austin Eckroat at $7,200. Both winners on the fall swing previously, both guys who can spike on approach and with the putter, both guys who excel at the comp courses, both guys who excel at short courses, checking a lot of boxes. Two other guys I like, Eric Cole and Carson Young at 7,100. Love both of them. Both excel at short courses, both really good ball strikers. And if we're being honest, both kind of the drivers, the weak spot of their game. Maybe not Carson, but definitely Eric Cole. And that's going to be kind of evened out here. So really do like both of them as well. And then I will give Taylor Montgomery a shout. I don't think Taylor Montgomery is a great PGA Tour golfer, but he was third here 3 years ago. He was 12th in his last PGA Tour start. He's one of the best putters on tour. Maybe worth a look at 7,000. And then in the 6K range, like I said, y'all, I'm going to keep it pretty simple this week. Long-term talent plays, long-term profile plays. I like Lipsky. I like Coles. I like Isat Sene. And I really like Justin Lauer. He's a guy who can really spike with the putter, and he hasn't recently. That has me thinking that he could come back and do it here in the fall, which, by the way, he was one of the best fall players last year on the PGA Tour, as was Nick Hardy. Both of them were kind of knocking on the door. So I don't mind the idea of going with either of them, just kind of banking on like the fall swing biomechanics of it all. Isaiah Salinda and Chan Kim, two of the best ball strikers in the field. They're down here in the 6K range. And then I want to shout out Ethan Fang. So Ethan Fang only has one start. He missed the cut at the Open, which I'm not going to hold against him because that was a major championship. He played at the Walker Cup at Cypress Point last week. I wasn't watching this because college football was on. But he's really good. He won like all of his matches, and he won them big. So he's riding some positive momentum. He's in good form. He's an amateur, but he's certainly a guy who could probably show up well here and play better than at least half the field, because half this field's pretty putrid. So I do think that he's worth a look at 6,700. And honestly, I think that's pretty much all I'm interested in the 6K range. You guys that have been around a long time know I'm a long-term buyer in John Pock, but he's been awful this summer. And Matthew Neesmith is a guy who generally plays well in the fall swing, generally plays well at the comp courses, but I just don't know about him. So yeah, that's gonna do it for the field. If you're playing one and done this week, which I might try to find a fall swing one and done, maybe. I'm sure there's some out there. If you're playing a one and done this week, consider that most of the Ryder Cuppers are not going to be playing another event in the fall. So this is likely the only time you'll get to use Scheffler. Potentially the only time you'll get to use Thomas or Henley. Burns generally plays the Sanderson Farms, as does Ben Griffin. Yeah, so this is a week where, like, be aggressive, because a lot of these guys you're not going to have a chance to use again if you're playing a one and done. McNeely won the RSM Classic last year, so might want to save him. And there's a whole lot of guys in this field that are going to need to play more fall events if they want to improve their standing. But like I said, this is a week to go aggressive and play a Ryder Cupper. In terms of the Ryder Cup guys that are most likely to come back and play event in the fall, like I said, Sam Burns plays the Sanderson. Ben Griffin usually plays the Sanderson. Cantlay loves money, so don't discount Cantlay's ability to play anywhere. Henley might play the RSM. Trying to think of the other fall events and if these guys play any of them. I think that's about it. I'd have to really do some research and some deeper dives other than that. But I feel like you can pretty much just fire away on whoever you want this week. But anyway, that's going to do it here for this episode, guys. So at the end of the day, to kind of recap all of that, Outright betting this week. I haven't really made my mind up yet. Considering it each way on Putnam, considering it each way on Doug Gim and a few of those guys. But I'm not touching protection from Scotty Scheffler. Like I need protection from Scotty Scheffler because I really think there's a chance he can just boat race the entire field. There's a chance he can do that every time he tees it up. From DFS, I think the name of the game this week is going to be to play Scotty or to get two of your favorites up at the top and then backfill it with a lot of that 7K range. I think there's a lot of guys in the 7K range that are about even. Or I think you could maybe get real aggressive and get one of the guys in the 8K like an Akshay or a Grazerman or a Davis Thompson or Jackson Quayban. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Hopefully, we gave you guys all the information needed in order to build some winning DFS lineups, betting slips, and one-and-done entries for the Procore Championship. If this helped you out in any way, please hit the like button. It helps me out whenever you guys do that, and I really do appreciate it. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. If you're listening on audio, make sure you rate and review the podcast. So we're going to take a little bit of a break from golf because, there's a week off, and then the Ryder Cup, which is not really fun to do a show like this for, even though I am really looking forward to this Ryder Cup. Just with all the drama behind the selections, I think the host course, Bethpage Black, is great. I think the fact that it's, the USA looking for revenge is great. I'm really looking forward to this Ryder Cup, but I'm not probably going to have any content for it. But so in the meantime, make sure you're subscribed so that way you'll know when we're back. And then also you can get all of our college football content as well while that's going on. That's going to do it here for this episode, y'all. Thank you guys for watching and listening to this point. Best of luck to you at the Procore Championship. Hopefully you make some money. And with that, we will see you guys next time.